Welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we're tackling a genuinely massive historical shift, the Gandhi Era from 1915 to 1947. Now, if you're a history buff, or maybe you're just prepping for competitive exams, you probably already know the major events. But today, we're actually going to map them all out chronologically to show you the brilliant step-by-step tactical escalation that literally won independence. Okay, let's dive into this.
Seriously, think about it for a second. How did one single philosophy manage to dismantle the world's largest empire? We usually picture revolutions as these chaotic, incredibly violent explosions. But here we're looking at something exceedingly rare. It's a structured, highly deliberate chain reaction. We're talking about one man's core ideas, wielding nothing but spinning wheels and salt, systematically taking down British rule.
So, here's our roadmap for this chronological journey. We'll kick things off with arrival and core principles, then look at the early local satyagrahas, scale up to the non-cooperation movement, escalate into civil disobedience and Dandi, and finally hit quit India to independence. This structure is going to be super helpful for those of you keeping track for exams.
All right, Section 1, Arrival and Core Principles. Let's set the stage with his 1915 arrival in India.
So when Gandhi arrived back in 1915, he brought with him these 4 foundational ground rules. And now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these weren't just abstract ideas. They acted as a very specific, practical toolkit for resistance. You've got satyagraha, nonviolence, swadeshi, and non-cooperation. Take swadeshi, for instance. It wasn't just a buzzword. It was literal economic warfare. By boycotting foreign goods and spinning their own cloth, they were directly hitting the pockets of the giant British textile industry.
But the real engine driving the whole shebang was satyagraha. It basically means holding firmly to truth. And it is absolutely crucial to understand this. This was not passive resistance. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't passive at all. It was fiercely active. It meant staring unjust laws right in the face, completely refusing to comply, but at the exact same time entirely refusing to throw a punch. It became the absolute ethical backbone for every single historical event we're about to map out. Moving right along to Section 2. Early local satyagrahas. Let's see how he first tested these theories on a localized scale.
You see, Gandhi didn't just launch a massive national movement on day one. No way. He used his first few years as a localized testing ground. Let's walk through this timeline. In 1917, at Champaran, he organized indigo farmers who were dealing with exploitative planters. Then in 1918, he supported the Kheda peasants who were crippled by taxes and crop failures, alongside the Ahmedabad mill workers demanding a plague bonus. He was basically beta testing this high-level philosophy of satyagraha against very local, hyper-specific grievances. And spoiler alert, it worked. Okay, Section 3, the non-cooperation movement. This is where the strategy shifts dramatically to a unified national stage.
1920 is the moment the scope just absolutely explodes. So the crucial point is how we pivot from those localized regional wins directly to this massive nationwide stage. The ambition was no longer about just fixing a local tax rate, right? It was now about challenging the entire fundamental foundation of British rule across the whole subcontinent.
The sheer scale of this 1920 movement was completely unprecedented. It was the first truly national campaign in this arc, and the strategy? Profoundly simple. Think about it. An empire simply cannot function if its subjects completely refuse to be administered. Millions surrendered their British titles, students just walked right out of government schools, and lawyers abandoned the royal courts. They literally just jammed the gears of the colonial machine.
Which brings us to Section 4, Civil Disobedience and the Dandi March. Moving into the 1930s, the resistance escalates even further. So by 1930, we're no longer just not cooperating, we are actively, peacefully disobeying the law. The government held this incredibly strict monopoly on salt. So Gandhi walked 240 miles to the coastal village of Dandi. What started with just 78 followers rapidly swelled into tens of thousands, simply picking up a single handful of tax-free salt. It was a brilliantly tactical application of his core principles. It actively protested an unjust law on a global stage and proved, without a doubt, that his toolkit worked.
All right, Section 5, Quit India to Independence. Let's move to and see how this builds into the final, most intense chapter of the escalation arc, leading up to 1947. Tracing this overarching timeline, you can really see how this brilliantly illustrates that unstoppable momentum peaking. From non-cooperation back in 1920 to civil disobedience in 1930, it all culminates in 1942 with the Quit India movement.
This was it, the definitive, uncompromising demand for an immediate British exit, marked by Gandhi's famous instruction to do or die. It was this relentless, highly structured pressure that ultimately shatters the empire, finally leading to independence in 1947.
So, just look at this brilliant tactical staircase we've unpacked today. None of this was random, you guys. Step 1, prove the concept locally in 1917. Step 2, unify the whole country through non-cooperation in 1920. Step 3, escalate to active civil disobedience in 1930. And finally, Step 4, that uncompromising final push of quit India in 1942. Every single movement was a calculated stepping stone that logically built upon the success and the groundwork of the last.
Ultimately, this era from 1915 to 1947 isn't just a history lesson to memorize for a test. It's literally a master blueprint for systemic change. Countless civil rights movements globally have since borrowed this exact playbook. So it leaves us pondering a pretty heavy question. Considering the immense historical weight of this structured philosophy changing the map of the world, how might these very same principles of truth and strategic non-cooperation be deployed to dismantle the systemic injustices we still face today? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning everything.